described one experience of a near-death experience, but being in the army, I'm sure that's something that must play on your mind a lot, right? I mean, I tend to think that army men would be closest to being spiritual because you face death all the time, and that must
Yeah,
turn you inward, and it
that
must bring up questions about your
that is
existence.
very right. You see, because the Mahabharata says what is the greatest miracle. He said each minute we see things dying around us, people
And
dying
we think,
around us,
yes,
but never for a moment do we think that we are going to die.
yes,
But as you very rightly put it, in the battlefield, Dharma Kshetre, Kurukshetre, the real field of Dharma is the field of battle. Because you face the truth, you face the reality. It is written in the Gita, Na hanyate hanyamane sharire. It does not die with the death of the body.
sword cannot kill
Nainam
it.
chandanti shastrani. The weapons cleave it not, nor the fire burns, nor the wind can carry it away.
Yes.
That is the Atman. But then, do you believe it? And you see, it's easy to sit in a drawing room and discuss these things on the theoretical plane. But when you are in the battlefield and people to the right and people to the left are getting shot and their intestines are spilling out and somebody is crying for water and somebody is dying, at that time, if you can hold on to the belief that there is a part of me that will never die, well, that is it.
But it can't just be a belief, though, right? You must have had some experience of it for it to really
I,
to stay with you in those
my guru
moments.
used to talk of what is called pratik darshan. Of the experiences that you have in meditation. One was ecstasy, the second was the experience of great wideness, the third was the experience of pratik darshan. Pratik darshan, he said that when your nerves are fully purified, when you are meditating deeply, you will suddenly find that you are out of your body. And when you are out of your body and you can see your body, well, then the fear of death goes forever and ever.
Yes.
Because now I am the real I. He said, the way he put it was that the first time it happened to him, he was so astonished. Who is the real I? Is it that one or is it this one? Because you are the exact replica of your body. He was sitting in front of his body
Okay.
and looking at his own
Yes.
body. That is Pratik Darshan. I haven't had that Pratik Darshan. I'm sure that is the one which is the most intensely, I mean, when there are no doubts left thereafter, because before dying you have experienced the little death. But somehow the cultural imprinting, cultural conditioning, especially because of a number of experiences of death, is so strong
Yes.
that I find that one is able to overcome the fear of death, except towards that last bit of that extinction when you feel that you are possibly going out. But that is the surprising thing. Generally, people don't associate the military with
Yes.
spirituality.
Yeah, spirituality is associated with peace.
With peace
But
and quiet.
I mean, I think
in the-
your example is great in that,
But
army
in the
men
Indian
can't be
tradition,
spiritual.
beta,
Yes.
that there is the Sant Sipahi, the tradition of the soldier saint. It is the person who meditates, who picks up the sword to defend his country. That is what we have had again and again and again. It is Baba Paraga, it is Banda Bairagi, it is, and even Shivaji was more or less a saint of sorts, and so was Maharana Pratap, a saint of sorts, and Guru Gobind Singh.
Yes.
With the Sikh tradition, you come to the tradition of soldier saints. Whereas soldiers in other cultures are supposed to be hedonists, they drink rum, they live the Rajsik life, etc., to the full, because they want to, that since life is so short, let us
Yes.
enjoy it before it all ends. You are cut down in the next battle. That is
Yeah.
one way of reacting to the imminence of death. The other way of reacting to the imminence of death is that you start questioning what is the real.
Yes.
Lead me from untruth to truth, from death to immortality, and from
Asatoma.
darkness to light. Asatoma sad gamaya, mritoma amritam gamaya, asatoma sat gamaya. That is that Upnastic
Yes.
state. And I find that in the armed forces you find many officers, many men who are deeply spiritual because of the context of their lives, because of the imminence of death. It is that which impels them to ask questions
Yes.
which are which are put off in civil life
Yes.
till the very end, till
Yes.
you are very old and you have to face with it.
Hmm.
We have to ask these questions at a very young age.
Yes.
And in my own case, once with the snake, so many times on the battlefield, I have been very close to death. And I
Yes.
find that that experience tends to
Give you an
make you
impetus.
far more, the impetus to spirituality is
Yeah.
far stronger.
Yes. Yeah, I would imagine so. And I mean, you've mentioned a little bit about the scriptures and quoting the Mahabharata. So have you been, a very serious and sincere student of the scriptures and Vedas? Do you read regularly, and do you sort of remember some of the learnings from the scriptures to guide you in your daily life?
I haven't had any formal training in the scriptures in terms of reading the Vedas or the other epics, etc. But then, in my house there were a whole lot of books on spirituality because my father used to read a lot, and he would read a book and pass it on to me. Then he had another very nice habit. He used to call these saints and sadhus and swamis. If he felt that any one of them showed any level of spiritual attainment, he would call him home, feed him khana, sit and dialogue with him, discuss with him, and make me sit next and listen to those dialogues. So from very
Started at a
early
young
on
age.
in life, I have been exposed to these experiences and books and books. I read books of Swami Shivananda to start with, then on to Vivekananda, then the Ramakrishna series, then I read Aurobindo, and then because of these readings, I was impelled to read the Vedas in the original, and I started work on trying to read the Vedas, Veda by Veda. It's a major task,
Yes.
and I'm trying to read the Upanishads. Quite obviously, I'm not that good at Sanskrit, so I need translations. And with the help of translations, I've been trying to do that because I do feel there is a tremendous lot there. There is a tremendous lot which is there. In fact, if you see the Upanishads, most of them are what will happen after death.
Yes.
What part of me will remain? Which part of me will remain? What is it that will survive? These are the same questions in the Chandogya Upanishad, in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, in the Kena Upanishad, in the Munduk Upanishad. They're all full of dialogues like
Yes.
this, and therefore there is a great relevance to this. And in the Indian tradition, there are these 4 stages of your life. There is the Brahmacharya stage, in which you are a student, and then there is the stage of the householder. Then comes the stage of Vanyaprastha, that after you have retired,
Yeah.
you retire to solitude and you deepen this study. So I do think that time has come.
I think you're well advanced on the path. Just turning a little bit to more current sort of world affairs, and that's the realm that you're very much known for, your views on what's happening with terrorism globally. Do you think that we can draw parallels between what's happening in terms of terrorism and our ancient epics like the Ramayana and Mahabharata? I mean, would you say that the terrorists of today are the Kauravas and the Ravans of these epics?
If you read all our scriptures, there is that constant battle between the forces of light
Yeah.
and the forces of darkness. The Asuras and the Devas. What are the Devas? The beings of light. And the Asuras are the forces of darkness. It's that kind of Star Wars kind of a dyad, good versus evil. And you find your entire scriptures are all, through and through. The Vedas have the battle between the forces of light and the forces of darkness.
Yeah.
The Asuras and the Suras, the Asuras and the Devas. And in the Mahabharata, you have the Rakshasas and Ravan, and then there are the forces of good, which is Rama. And again in the Mahabharata, the Kauravas and the Pandavas, you see. So in every age there is this battle between the forces of good and the forces of evil. And the fact that you must confront that evil. You see, there is no ahimsa ascribed there. They are violent wars to the finish. All these entail fighting to the finish. All these bring out the hero in you.
Yes.
It is like slaying the dragon of your own fears.
Yeah.
Facing up to the dragons in your psyche and ultimately overcoming them.
Yes.
So I do think that kind of a combat, that kind of Veer Bhav sadhana the sadhana of the heroic mood, as it is called in Sanskrit, is a part of your spiritual evolution. Unless you have overcome your fear, it is fear that makes us shrink, it is fear that makes us small, it is overcoming our fearness, abhayata. You see, if you see all the statues of the Indian gods, one of their hands is raised in the Abhayadan Mudra. Abhayadan Mudra means we free you from fear. This is the mudra that frees you from fear. And once you are freed from fear, there are no obstacles. That person is undefeatable. That person is, it is the fears that lead us to our death.
Yeah.
So to overcome death, you have to overcome fear.
Yeah.
To overcome darkness, you have to, you have to become the forces of light yourself.
Yes.
Heroically battle the forces of darkness. And that, in that very battle, is your path of evolution.
Yes.
It's a shortcut to the path of evolution.
Yeah.
You see, because when you face the ultimate fear, the fear of death, and you can overcome that fear of death, then I think you are in a long way that you have freed from your karmas.
Yeah. So that's the inner meaning of fighting against negative forces. But in an external context, in India we've heard about terms like dharam, karam, kshatriya dharam. So how do we understand these?
The Gita talks of dharma. Dharma is what is right, righteousness. It is not dharma as in religion, but it is dharma as righteousness. What is right, what needs to be done, what must be done, whatever the costs. So that is dharma. There is a term called swadharma. One is dharma for everyone. There is the swadharma, which is your own inner nature, your dharma. And if your dharma is to be a kshatriya, to fight, if you are by nature, courageous, tend to be brave, and as a kid you played with weapons, you loved playing with weapons and toy guns and pistols, like that, and then you grew up. So that is your inner nature. But if your inner nature is innately peaceful, quiet, meditative, contemplative, Brahmanical, kshatriya, or you'd like to trade and you'd like to play the games of traders and things like that, that is your swadharma. So it is essential to identify what my swadharma is and follow my true inner nature. And to a lot of us, we have the warrior in us, and that warrior consciousness must be awakened. And I do feel in a part of everyone's sadhana, at some point in time, he has to follow the path of the warrior. He has to overcome his fear. There are certain meditations which are to be done in the cremation ground. Where there are dead bodies being burnt, and people tend to see ghosts and all that. You spend the whole night there in meditation. That is the ultimate overcoming of the fear. The ultimate fear is the fear of death. And you face that fear, look it squarely in the eye, and that is a path of your evolution and your path of your growth. So I do think that in the Indian system, the Gita is the greatest guide for soldiers. Soldiers are supposed to overcome two kinds of negative emotions. One is the emotion of fear, which is disorganizing. Other is the emotion of guilt, which is also disorganizing. If you get overcome by these two emotions, you can't act. Imagine a person knows how to fire a gun, how to load, how to, this thing. But if at night his gun jams and he's terrified, you find his hands start trembling, and he's lost the cohesion of purpose because he's been overcome by fear. So the two emotions to induce in the minds of your enemy are fear and guilt. And the Gita is all about how to manage fear, how to manage guilt. Go to the first chapter when Krishna takes Arjun to the middle of the battlefield and he's overcome by guilt. Oh, will I kill my uncles, will my brothers, my gurus, my relations? What kind of a kingdom will I want to inherit? What will be the worth of that kingdom? Then he throws down his Gandiv. So then he tells him, look, if you don't kill them, they will kill you remorselessly. And then, of course, he expounds the whole philosophy. What he is teaching you in the Gita is how to manage the negative emotions of fear and guilt, which are the greatest degraders of combat performance. Amazingly, that message is as relevant today in the age of atom bombs and
Yes.
guns and jet fighters and cannons and rockets and missiles,
Hmm.
as it was in the age of the bow and arrow.
Yes. So
It
do you
is
ever
as relevant.
use
And we
the
find
Gita
it of
to
course,
motivate your man and
of course.
to guide them?
And how does the Gita overcome your fear of death? It tells you, na hanyate hanyamane sharire. It does not, you will not die with the death of your body. A part of you will survive. The
Yes.
part of light, angushtaman, that person.
Yes.
The person will survive. The real you will never die.
The
You know,
self.
nainam chandanti shastrani. Weapons do not cleave him, do not cut him. Uh, Dahati pavakah, and the fire does not burn him,
Hmm.
and the wind does not drive him away or carry him away. That is the real person, the real Purusha, the real you. This is what the Gita tells you.
Yeah.
And that helps you in that management of fear, really.
Yeah.
Even without that out of the body experience, what sees you through the battlefield, you will find there are very few people who actually show fear. One of the greatest things you learn about combat is that courage is a surprisingly common human quality. For the sake of self respect, everybody feels fear, but very few people show it on the battlefield. And how common a quality courage is, you will realize only once you get to the battlefield, because the general conception is that courage is a very rare quality.
Yes.
Then the Paramveer Chakra winner is a very rare kind of a guy.
Yeah.
But the actual fact that I have experienced on the battlefield, especially in the Indian context, is
Yeah.
that the Indian soldiers, by and large, were conditioned into not showing their fear by cultural imprinting कि साहब हम घर कैसे जाएंगे, हमारे घर की औरतें कुएं से पानी नहीं पीने देंगी अगर हम लड़ाई के मैदान से भाग के आएंगे. So that is the kind of cultural imprinting for overcoming fear,
Yes.
which is a great help on the battlefield, and all that comes down from the Gita.
And do you think that other spiritual practices like yoga and meditation can be useful to soldiers? I mean, do you think that soldiers should be yogis?
They are tremendously useful, not only for overcoming the fear of death, but for inducing the calmness on the battlefield that makes you act coherently. If you were reduced to a gibbering wreck, a wreck of nerves, a bundle of nerves, you could
Yes.
not fire any weapon, especially the more complicated the weapons, with firing sequences and all that. You need to be calm, you need to be cool, you need to be concentrated, you need to be focused. So you need yoga and meditation help you so much in generating that economic stability. The
Yes.
stability of the nervous system comes from yoga.
Yes.
That one pointedness of being able to aim correctly comes from yoga, of not getting, vichalit nahi hona.
Yes.
That comes from yoga. And all the ancient warriors were great yogis.
Yes.
Do not forget, in the Indian context, Krishna is the greatest of all yogis.
Yes.
Arjuna and all these warriors, to get the divine weapons, celestial weapons, they did years of meditation and penance to obtain those weapons. They did meditation and concentration,
Yes.
to obtain those very divine celestial weapons
Yes.
of the gods. And yoga has been part of our folklore, and as you've seen, it continues best in the Sikh tradition. The
Yes.
gurus are not only gurus spiritual, they're also great
Overtly.
leaders of battle who motivate you to fight, to overcome your fear, to fight with tyranny, not surrender to it. When the Mughal Empire had turned tyrannical, they were sawing people in half. Mati Das, Bhai Mati Das was sawn in half. His brother was burnt to death. He was wrapped up in these wool, dipped in oil, and he was burnt to death. Another brother was put in boiling water. There were tortures like this and yet people fought. So all these, the Sant Sipahi tradition, the soldier saint tradition, is quite unique to the Indian context.
Yes.
But it is a tradition that is very strong, and I'm happy to say is still quite alive and vibrant.
Yes. So I think
So that's been a very revelatory discussion. I think we've come a long way in establishing the role of spirituality in the lives of soldiers. Just to finish off the conversation and bring it back to a more current context, we see a lot of blood being shed today in the name of religion.
Do you think that the world has sort of outgrown organized religion? And do you think it needs to be replaced? And if so, with what?
I think it was Aldous Huxley who said that there is a core mystical content in all religions which shorn of the different verbiage or different language in which you have expressed it is the same. The
Yes.
core mystical experience, whether in Christianity or in Hinduism or in Sikhism and even in Islam to an extent, is the same. And I think one of the best examples of that was Ramakrishna, who in his own lifetime he did meditation, he learnt meditation under a tantric master, and he got the ultimate experience of samadhi. Then he learnt it from an Advantic, a Vedic, Advait Vedanti sadhu, who did not believe in idols and this and that, and he forced him to do the Vedantic sadhana, and he found that the ultimate experience was the same. And then he made himself an acolyte to one of the Sufi saints, and who asked him to forget all that and to practice it the Islamic way. And at the end of it, it is his testimony that the final experience that he had was precisely the same. And then he practiced it the Christian way, that meditation. And then he again found that even with those practices, when they were taken to their extreme, they led to the same thing. So, there is a language component to it. I think with the Tower of Babel, we have so many languages in which we've tried to express the same thing. And the more you've gone into language and
Yes.
into words,
It's corrupted.
the more you have lost the touch with that original experience, the profundity of experience. You see, after all the original prophets and saints who discovered various religions, I mean, they, like Muhammad, had gone into the desert to live in solitude.
Yes.
So willy-nilly he was doing meditation.
And
Even Christ had
40
built
days, 40 nights.
40 days, 40 nights, and even otherwise he's supposed to have spent a long time wandering in the wilderness.
Yes.
Where the tradition is that he had come to the East to learn the disciplines, yogic disciplines of the East. So, there is that when you go beyond the language component,
Yes.
and you go to the silent component of the mind, you touch that consciousness, the self-same consciousness everywhere in the human being.
It's
And
universal.
in the Indic religions, you believe that it is that consciousness which is the base substratum of the universe. That is what you would like to call God, or whatever other term you use for it. We use the term Sat Chit Ananda because the experience of it is ecstatic and joyful and overwhelming reality. So I think the trick lies in going beyond the language component to the core experience, core mystical experience in every religion. And if we treat that path, we find all religions have the same, lead to the same, all paths leads to Rome,
Yes.
and all the spokes of a wheel converge on the nave.
Yes. It just means going beyond the different beliefs. And-
Beyond the verbal,
Hmm.
beyond the verbal. Even in your mind, there is a verbal component,
Yes.
language component. Even when we are quiet, we are carrying on an inner dialogue. It is only when you silence that inner dialogue that you recede and experience the mystical depths of your own consciousness.
Beyond the
And the consciousness is the same everywhere.
Yes.
That is, I
That is
think,
what
the
is
cause
needed
for
in the
hope.
world.
That is
Yes.
the cause for hope. Because if you are too focused on the outward manifestations of religion, on the language component of religion, then you emphasize the difference.
Yes.
Whereas in Indian philosophy, you emphasize not the words, but the darshan, the experience, the experiencing it for yourself.
Yes.
And you are supposed to do it for yourself. You have the darshan. The word for philosophy is darshan. It is not about smart definitions of, what exactly does this term mean and that term mean and this term mean. But that is just in words. Words
Yeah.
are not the reality. They are symbols of reality. So
Yes.
if you are touching just the symbols, you're not touching the core.
Yes.
You're not touching what is the core mystical experience in us, and that is the experience of your own consciousness, of your
Yes.
own purusha, of your own chiti.
Words
That
can
is
only be pointings, but you need to go beyond them to have the experience.
absolutely. The words are just symbols. They are a mind map of reality. They are not the territory.
Yeah.
It's a mind map.
Yes.
But if you want to still, by going on a map, you could know about that area, but you still haven't traveled the terrain.
Yes.
For that, you'll actually have to get down and undertake that journey with the help of that map.
Yeah. Very much, General Bakshi. That's been a very enlightening discussion. We've learned so much more about you that I don't think many people knew about, and we've
Thank
learned so
you.
much from you in terms of how spirituality really permeates every aspect of life, including, the
Meditation.
very intense aspect of life, which is conflict situations and war and the army. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you
Thank you.
for this lovely interaction.
Thank you very much again, General Bakshi, and thank you all for watching. Don't forget to leave your comments and feedback. And for more on wisdom and wellness, do visit our website www.livingwiseproject.com. This is Shruti signing off. Namaste.